Mothers know all about life's tricky transitions. Thankfully, Ollie helps you prioritize wellness through every age, life stage, or magnificent mood change. Need a multitasking multivitamin that keeps up with you? How about an essential prenatal for you and baby? Ollie's got you through it all. Life's tricky. Your wellness routine shouldn't be. Get what you need at ollie.com.
It feels like you can get your credit scores anywhere these days. Random websites, card statements, budgeting apps, heck, even your dog might bark out a few numbers. It's true. Credit Karma isn't the only place you can find them. But we actually do more with your scores to help you find your next financial opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! The possibilities are kinda endless. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
Thank you! I couldn't have completed this project without a little extra coffee. And since I brush with Colgate's Pro Series toothpaste with an expert-level whitening for a vibrant glow, I could show up to set each day camera-ready and smiling wide.
Well, Kelly, looks like a little Colgate gave you a lot of confidence.
Colgate Optic White. Find it at all major retailers.
Oh, do you want me to speak first and then you're going to do the... Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to do that. Right.
Sorry. Sorry. Yes.
What's up, everybody? It's ImmaLetYouFinish, show number 205 with your host, Lola Falana and Susan Anton on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Wait a minute. Why do I always have to be the blonde? I don't understand.
Well, I picked her because she's tall, and I just thought, well, you're tall, and she's a tall woman. So I just thought, first I was gonna say Barbie Benton, but I don't think Barbie is tall.
Oh no, I don't want to be Barbie Benton.
I was obsessed with Barbie Benton.
Well, that explains everything. That explains
literally who you know is like married to like a billionaire, is like a businesswoman and lives in a fabulously architectural house like in Colorado or something.
All right. Well, speaking of that, before we get started, and I apologize for my voice, I'm doing my tribute to Marge Simpson's sisters later on today in dinner theater. These are very stressful times, Courtney, and you know how I like to handle stress, pumping myself full of caffeine, because I feel like that's a good thing. So we have talked about this product before, alfuracoffee.com. It is coffee from the rainforest, which means it's organic. It's from the Rainforest Alliance, which means you're doing good things for people. Central and South America, it comes in every varietal. There's a light roast, medium roast, dark roast, because you know I like my coffee like I like my friends, black and bitter, and espresso. I just thought I'd throw that in there for no good reason. So it's delicious. It's really good coffee. And because we know that you are coffee people too, we're going to post this link on our social page. But if you use our promo code IMMA5967, you will get a very nice little discount for your trouble. So yay, coffee. And just one more thing. This, I have to say this. If you're in the New York City area, I'm finally going to go to the Andre 3000 show. Courtney, you happy? You've been talking about it for 3 weeks. Okay. So Friday and Saturday.
I keep asking. I'm like, did you go to the Andre show yet? You were like, this was in September. You'd be like, it's in October. And
it's here. It's here.
Then a couple of days would go by and I'd be like, did you go to the Andre 3000 show? No. You'd be like, it's in October.
It's in October. Well, alert the media, it's come. So, guys, seriously, if you're
tell them it's also with Michelle. Like, you're
right, Michelle and Degucello's. I mean, this is a killer bill. Michelle and Degucello's opening up for Andre 3000, New Blue Sun Live. Tickets are available. Brooklyn Academy Music, an amazing venue to see shows. So Friday and Saturday, and that is it. Oh, and early voting in New York starts on Friday.
I thought it was Saturday. I thought it was the 26th.
Oh,
Isn't it the
that too. We'll
26th? Yeah.
vote on Friday too. Just keep voting.
The last show I saw at BAM was Madonna. But I love BAM as a venue. It's great.
Well, this show will go on before 1 a.m. How's that? You will be out of there. You will be out of there by the time Madonna was finishing her vocal exercises. And I put that in such huge quotes when it comes to Madonna. Bless her heart. Anyway, there's lots of stuff that happened this week. How are you, first off? You're obviously better than me.
Black and bitter. Oh,
but like my coffee.
but working on it. Use our code.
Right. I'm up 5967. You can get 20% off Courtney's bitterness.
Let me just tell you what I've appreciated. There's a couple of appreciations that have come from this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I never paid attention to the MC5, and we have a guest on later.
That's right. Jaan Uhelski, who is a personal Jesus of mine. She's amazing. She's going to be on to talk about her brilliant new book, An Oral History of Rock's Most Revolutionary Band, MC5. So continue.
I had never listened to their music, and I was never like the hardest rock. Like, I like Nina Hagen Band. I actually really liked Wendy O. Williams and the Plasmatics.
That always kills me that your idea of punk is, bless her heart, but I love the fact that an entire genre and movement for you is the stripper who had a heavy metal band. Bless her heart. It makes sense.
With me, it made total sense. I was completely obsessed with her image and how she looked. And then Nina Hagen Band, right? Like, I love Nina Hagen Band before she did solo stuff. But I never really paid attention. I knew the Clash. I knew some other things, but not really into it. MC5 I'd never listened to. And when I listened to the music, I'm like, I completely understand why they're influential to people. The musicality... It's almost psychedelic in some parts.
Oh, it definitely. They were doing a lot of acid. But
I listened to even their vocals. The vocals are really strong. I absolutely understand how they could have influenced a whole generation of bands.
Yeah. Well,
I also came out with another appreciation for Ozzy Osbourne, somebody who I never really paid that much attention to.
Someone has replaced Courtney with a white dude.
No, I'm going to tell you why. Because when, I think that you have to really get the tributes right at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I really, 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 really do. And I was not happy with the tribute to him because I realized, oh my God, these people cannot sing your songs. Like, I'm listening to Jelly Roll, who's a fine artist. But
he should. What was that about?
He did not sound good singing Ozzy. So I realized, that kind of screaming, really strong, loud vocal is
But Billy Idol was good. Billy Idol was good.
But it made me realize, I may not have been into your music or what you do, but what you do is not easy to do because somebody here who can sing sounded terrible trying to sing your song. You know what I mean? And it made me appreciate that vocal style even more. It's like Steven Tyler, right? Steven Tyler having to basically retire and the band having to stop their tour because of his style of singing. And when I saw him, that raspy, strong, loud singing is really, really strong. You know what? And it's funny, Jan's here, so let's bring her in. She's here. Do you want me to leave her on hold?
I told her to wait. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let's just finish up with the Hall of Fame. So for me, I had a hard time finding the stuff, and so the groups I was the most interested in were Mary J. and Tribe in terms of performances and Cher. So I thought, okay, I love Dua Lipa, but she brought nothing to that. I love her. She looked amazing. She looked amazing. But great. Cher is Cher. Cher is a singular artist. She has one of those voices, it's Cher right off the bat. And I don't understand. I understand that it's exciting to have partners, but this is not a band. Cher is, unless you're bringing Sonny back from the grave, Why are you sticking someone next to? So I thought,
well, this is where the conversation that we've discussed. Well, it's a TV show now, right? So it's like, let's get the young pop star. And it didn't do it look great. It didn't make sense.
It didn't make sense. But I will say this. Any of these naysayers out there were like, yeah, she's not rock and roll. Oh, screw you, because she personifies everything. So she looked great. She sounded great. I loved it. Tribe, I cannot be objective when it comes to Tribe. Not all of them were there. Q-Tip's speech was hilarious because basically it went on for an hour and a half, but that's fine. I love them bringing Fife's dad up and him hitting on Dionne Warwick or whatever the hell was going on with that. Let the man have his moment. I thought that performance was great. I thought it was way too short. And oh my God, Latifah needs to get in because every time she gets on stage, she steals the show, and Common needs to only perform in group events.
Right.
Because that's when he shines. That's when he really shines. Mary J.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Okay. I love Mary J. And I think I will be I would have not done those 3 songs. I would have done Family Affair. I don't understand why she picked those songs. Number 1. Number 2, what was with the Rihanna reject dancers coming out with the umbrellas? What did that have to do with the price of tea in China? What was that? What were the umbrellas?
I could move past that, but I was so upset by the vocals. I'm like, this is the night you are being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it was just points where I was like, what is happening?
Did she sound? She sounded okay. I mean, that was
just the issue. Okay. I want better than okay. It's the way I felt about all of the years waiting for Shaka to get in, and I hated the musical.
Oh well, she was no. I mean, I don't know.
The vocals weren't great. It just wasn't a great vocal performance, and I felt like, okay, all right.
You know what I think? Like, and I understand it's a TV show and blah blah blah, but I really feel like when you have. I feel like Mary should have just gone up there and done her shit without all the singing and dancing and stuff. Prove to them, show them why you're in there, which is because you're a genius singer. I thought the rest of that just took away from her because she is a singer's singer. Also, no disrespect to Lucky Day, no disrespect to LMA, but what are you doing up there? What are you doing up there?
I don't even think of them as children of Mary J. If I could be honest with you,
not at all.
Consider them children
of
Mary J.
Not at all. They have nothing. All they have in common with her is they're black and they can sing, and that's it. There's no connection. I felt like
her song selection should have been different and to really showcase what her vocals really do and who she is. And I just didn't think that was great. Just like I also think. Jennifer Hudson coming to sing with Dionne Warwick. My issue with that is she's one of those women who has a big voice. The genius of Whitney Houston was Whitney had a tremendous voice, a huge voice, but she could use that voice. She knew when to be soft. She knew when to be medium. She knew when to be big. Jennifer just always seems like she's coming over a loudspeaker and she's like, turn my mic up to 11.
Was she there? She was there because she's dating Common, right? Is that the reason?
Well, I don't know because I'm sure they booked her for
all right. Here's my new
tribute. She's the tribute lady.
Oh, and Jelly Roll is now becoming the fat white as her. Sorry. Why?
We're such an unpleasant show.
No, but I'm serious. Okay, the overweight. I mean, he's got a great voice, but he is not the guy to do. Right. I don't care if he grew up listening to Ozzy. Everybody grew up listening to Ozzy.
And Jan went away, so you need to make sure tell her to come back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She got on to see if it works. Last time I did it, I needed headphones, so she's coming back.
Okay, great.
All right. So I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously, I'm glad for everybody else who got in. Cool. I just think it's gotten to too many guest stars, and it doesn't bring anything.
Feel like the thing that when I used to originally watch it when it came on HBO and we see that live show, and it felt like an event, and the people were up there jamming, and they were really singing. It wasn't about dancers and all of that. They weren't worried about a television show per se. And now it feels like, let's make it a television show. Let's have all of these things. And I don't think this year's performance was the best. You know,
Well,
I just don't.
I mean-
Even the foreigner part, right? Kelly Clarkson sounded fine. It just felt,
Yeah.
I don't know, it just all felt, this doesn't feel, I don't know.
I mean, my issue is, and then like I said, I mean, some of the performers, my issue is, especially when it comes to the genre of music that they have been slow to embrace and are now finally embracing. Don't get up there and do a Vegas act. Get up there. She could have stood there with a piano and a mic and blown them away because we've seen her do it.
Yeah.
Or she just could have done, I mean, I would have done Family Fair. I would have done Real Love. And then I would have done Without You.
That would have been amazing, hitting those notes. Yeah.
Right. I do.
Amazing.
It just, and you know what? She seemed off a little bit.
That's
seemed
what I'm telling you. It wasn't great. It wasn't great.
But the Tribe thing was great. And like I said,
I was happy with everybody who got in. I didn't think
Me too.
None of the performances blew me away. None of them. I have to be honest.
Yeah.
None
And
of
I
them.
didn't, like I said, I just watched who I watched. I don't care about Dave Matthews. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure he's a lovely guy. I'm glad for everybody who got in. Everybody who got in deserved to get in. But yeah, I told you I tried to watch it on Disney Plus. I got Enzo's mom's password, but because she has a 4-year-old, she set it to like parental control. So
and you're like, I can't find this shit. You know what?
And I said, I knew if I called you, you
Right.
would be like, you're an asshole and you're an idiot. Why can't you figure this out? So I didn't want to be like,
yeah, but you didn't want to
that
change her
good.
settings. You know what I mean? She has this
God,
set.
no.
You're not going to change.
No,
her
when
settings,
when you're bogarting somebody's password, you don't do anything. You just hope that the Secret Service doesn't end up your house. Let's talk about our sports teams. Yay.
Well, or you know what? We can come back after we have Jan on because I don't want to leave her waiting in the waiting room. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll come back with Jan, have a great conversation with her, and then we
That's
can
perfect.
let her go and end on our sports teams. So
Perfect.
we're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back, kids.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase, list it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
And we're back.
Hi, Jan. Okay, Jan, this is what's really crazy. First off, Jaan Uhelski. I mean, personal Jesus or personal Mary, I guess, not Jesus. We've never met. How fucking crazy is that?
I can't believe we haven't met. For real? I mean, I feel like we have. That's what's so nuts.
Yes. I've met your daughter, if that counts.
A lot. Your neighbor.
I know. I used to be my neighbor. All right. Jaan Uhelski is a former co-founder of Cream magazine, the magazine that made me want to become a music critic. So that's either you can blame Cream or thank Cream, depending on what kind of mood you're in. And she is she's just an amazing writer, an award-winning writer. And she is the co-author, but the author that matters most to me. I'm going to do what I do every time. I'm going to hold up a book as if anybody can see it. MC5, an oral biography of rock's most revolutionary band. And it's a really great book, Jan.
Oh, thank you.
It's a really great book. And I guess the first question I have is, what was it about Detroit? I feel like reading this, you know how they always say hip hop could only have happened in New York? It feels like this band could only have happened in Detroit.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it was kind of this movement of people. Okay, this is going to sound really reductionist, but it's like this sound of the factories. We all grew up with the sound of the car factories. Why? Because when we were in elementary school, they made us take tours of the smell and the horrible like cauldrons of fire. Like it was like a cautionary tale. And this happened to every school kid who went to Detroit or the suburbs. And I think you just it's just inculcated that sound that's all we have. We had like billowing smoke, and we had cars, and we were one company town, and it was more how it worked with people. Like, yeah, that's the sound of the Stooges, the sound of the MC5 was the sound of like tons of bands later, like the White Stripes, but it really was, you didn't want to do that. So you did this. So all you knew was that as your reference. And I'm honestly, I've thought about this. I mean, I am not in a band, obviously, but there's something about it that you want to create too. You want to create your way out of that fate. So.
And it was also that time, which is, it's so funny. I remember, I guess it was in elementary school, somebody's brother had the MC5, the Kick Out the Jams record. And it was just one of those things we'd be like, kick out the jams. And then we'd go, motherfucker, because obviously when you're 10, you can't say that in school. So the book is an oral history. You interview and we'll explain the genesis of the book because it sounds like a crazy project.
Okay. So back to being one of the founders of Cream. One of my co-founders, like co-warriors, was Ben Edmonds. We used to call him the White Worm. He looked like the missing Beach Boy. And he was just like silent but deadly. Like he sat in his neat little desk and did things that we didn't even know he was doing. I had no idea. I mean, I did know he was obsessed with the MC5 and moved from Boston to be in the place where the MC5 were, which is exactly why he moved to Detroit and got a job at Cream. Fast forward decades, he has been working on an MC5 book, kind of like Shaky, about Neil Young. And he gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he calls me up and he says, you have to finish the book with me. And I said, okay, I'll finish the book with you. And I booked flight to Detroit thinking, 3 weeks, we'll knock it out. At least I know where we're going, And I move into a room in his house in Detroit, and there's nothing written. It's like, what do you mean finish the book? So I go through stacks and stacks and stacks for 3 weeks, 12 hours a day. I read through his interviews, all handwritten. And God. I know, and I'm freaking out, and I go, oh, what am I going to do? So they won't let me he and his girlfriend won't let me take anything with me. So I start like making notes back when I get home to California, and pancreatic cancer is like a deadly quick killer, and like 8 months later he was gone. And I honestly thought, what am I going to do? There's so much material. I kept thinking, oh, there's got to be a manuscript someplace. So I went there once, and I kept bugging his girlfriend Mary Cobra, where is it? And she goes, I don't know. I can't find it. It's nowhere. So she started sending me scans of the interviews, and I would send them to a transcriber to type up. But it was so big, I thought, oh no, I can't make this into Shaky. It's not really, I know the MC5 because I worked at the Grandy Ballroom, kind of like our version of the Fillmore, and they were the house band, and I was the Coca-Cola girl. So I knew them from there, but it wasn't my story. I thought, well, I got to do something. And the reason I had to do something because Ben Edmonds started haunting my bathroom. Okay, that just makes me sound like a California nut, but I'm going to tell you, there was a force, there was a thing in my bathroom, and I kept going, gotta be you, Ben, get out of here. This is wholly inappropriate. Get out. I'll do the book. And this went on for about 5 months, and I'm not kidding. It was, I wanted to go use the guest bathroom in the house because it was so creepy. And so finally I realized this is such a big project, I needed to pull somebody else in. So Brad Tolinsky was the editor of Guitar World, is also a Detroiter. And I had done an oral history for Guitar World on $1 Billion Babies, the Alice Cooper band. So I thought, we did that pretty well together. We work well together, except he always would tell me I wrote like a girl. I do not. But
first off, if I may interject, as if there's anything wrong with that.
Right?
Continue.
Thank you. I'm adding that to his crime, as
Please.
if there's anything wrong with that. God bless. We should write like girls.
Yeah.
So I asked
but
him to help.
And we get paid like girls too. How's that?
Oh, that's bad. Okay, we don't. Okay, I'm back to we don't write like girls. Give us our due. So I asked him to do it because I know he was much more logical than I am, and he would proceed to break it down. So that's what we took all that material. I took half, he took the other half. Then we would exchange, and we did this for about 3 years. I mean, you would never think an oral history would take that long, but it was like writing a play. Like somebody would say something, someone else would contradict. There's a lot of backbiting and gossip and trying to write some kind of truth and grudges that were still there. There are parts when I was working on it that I start pacing, going, "Oh, I can't say that." I only took out a couple of things that would like personally hurt the survivors. But other than that, I left everything in there. I mean, I love that this band went to an English version of Est, Werner Erhardt's self-improvement. They went to one in England called, oh my God, I keep forgetting. I always want to call it Living Proof, like the hair product.
No, I know. I remember it from the book. Yeah.
It's called Ourselves. And I thought, wow, this badass rock band who took no prisoners, who like got kicked off their record label, taking Est, and I loved all those strange little revelations. It was fun when it was starting. I could see the end. It was not fun for a really long time, but I'm glad I did it. No,
it's and we'll get what's great about. I mean, it's so funny. Like people throw around the terms like revolutionary and groundbreaking. I mean, these guys were literally persecuted. I mean, it's like the only equivalent I can see, and it's not even as bad in a way as they had it, is like the targeting of rappers. I mean, these guys
100%.
were being targeted. John Sinclair, the White Panther Party, and that. I mean, I've never heard of a group that's being masterminded by an avowed anarchist / quasi drug dealer / everything else. And then at the same time, they did have this desire to be commercially viable, which is like this weird juxtaposition. I mean, they were especially Wayne, bless his heart. They were like gangster, man. They really were,
Oh yeah, they really were. They were like more like a biker band. They were really dangerous guys looking or actually even acting. Like they had a house in Detroit, and what we used to have this creed, like girls who worked at the Grande Ballroom or went there, like girls don't go by themselves to the MC5 house, They were like scary, and they were actually great looking. They had all that, drugs and sex and rock and roll thing going, and that was part of the creed of the White Panther Party. They did not start out as political animals, except that in the late 60s, everybody was a political animal. Like you weren't going to be like your parents. You were not going to live that life. You didn't want to live this life of quiet desperation. So we wanted our rights too. We weren't going to take it anymore, kind of thing. And I think what happened is it started as kind of a joke. The White Panther parties, like in one of those weed-filled nights, where everybody's laughing like, ha, 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 wouldn't it be funny if we started a political party? But in the end, a lot, not all, as you can tell in the book, signed on, and I sometimes think, the other part is their heckle, their anthem, their Kick Out the Jams part was really not obviously political. It was more if bands who they opened up for were playing and they were kind of limp, they weren't like really bringing it, they would just heckle them like a catcher would heckle like a batter, like out the jams, motherfuckers, and try to unnerve them. Like they were that personally, psychically dangerous to other bands. Other bands wouldn't even go on stage with them because they would do that to them, or they would blow them off the stage because on a good night, they were like the Yardbirds. They were like, I can't say they were like Alice Cooper. And it was just really high energy, and you felt you were part of them. It's that way that really heavy music gets inside of you and it makes your heart beat along with the bass and the drums, you know. It was very visceral music, and more so the politics made Detroiters feel like we were here we are doing something, we are one. I mean, they weren't hippies, but it had a lot to do with the hippie creed of, you know, we're in this together, we're not like the other people. It split the world into us and thems, and I was proud to be one of the thems, or the us's, which one.
But they also had, like, I mean, the hippie thing was definitely, I mean, they were way more aggressive. I mean, the whole part when they go to California and they're all kind of looking at them like, one thing I just want to say, I thought one of the funniest anecdotes is how they became friends with this cop.
Oh yeah, who kind
like
of
Officer Krupke. I'm just calling him that because I can't.
Studermeyer.
Yeah, something, and they became became friends with him, and he would just kind of warn them like, "Hey guys, you might not want to do this, you might not want to do that." When they're the most dangerous band in the world, you know. I just thought that was quite amusing. Courtney had never really heard. Courtney had a revelation. We were talking. Courtney had never heard them before. And Courtney, tell Jaan, because I thought what you said was just so cool.
No, listen, I never paid attention to them. You know, it wasn't really my jam. And you know, when Amy and I started talking about, you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who was getting in, blah, 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 and I was like, I don't really know their music, so I kind of just started with the Jams record. And I was kind of like, oh. I kind of understand and get this. This makes sense. I understand why they would be seen as revolutionary to especially young musicians. I understand why they're influential. It's actually, even though it's loud and it's psychedelic in parts to me, I was like, the musicality is there. The vocals are there. These songs. And then suddenly I found myself, I hit Amy the other day and I was like, I've had MC5 on all day. I've been listening to all these records.
And I was like, I'm like, excuse me, I don't know who you are.
And I was like, and it's like, I just kept going from one record to another. And I was like, I absolutely get this. I get why people feel a certain way about them, because it has a lot of things. It's like, sometimes with a lot of those bands, I don't really think that there's great vocals, if I could be honest, right? It's like loud and screaming. But when I hear the vocals, I'm like, these guys actually can sing.
Yeah,
they're
that's
singing
true.
here. The musicality, when I'm listening to the instruments being played, I'm like, they can play really well.
Yeah.
And even when the songs are kind of psychedelic, it's kind of in a way where it's like, even I, someone who this is not my genre, am feeling something here. So I can understand why, even though it seems like it was probably a short period, their most prolific period, why that would generationally influence a lot of other musicians. It makes sense to me.
Oh yeah, they say, I mean, one of the common things you hear is they influence as many other bands to start bands as the Velvet Underground. I mean, you know, didn't sell a ton of records, but people cite them all the time. I was interviewing Noel Gallagher from Oasis, and he was telling me how much he loved the MC5, and
that surprises me that doesn't seem like his type of band.
I know. Last time, I interviewed Wayne right before he passed away, and we were talking about that, and he goes, yeah, Noel came to see us play once, and I went over to him and said, and who are you again? And he said, I was really embarrassed that I didn't recognize him, but he went backstage at 2 of their London shows to just hang out with them because they meant so much to him. I honestly, when Noel Gallagher told me that the first time, I thought he was lying. You know, I thought he knew I was from Detroit, and he was telling me that because that was early on. But, you know, he meant it.
Why do you think it's really interesting that your first album would be a live record?
Yeah.
Do you know the reasoning behind that?
I do. They were a live band, and they had only been in a studio to do 2 singles prior to that. And the thinking was that they needed that audience to get off, you know, to go to peak performance. The part that wasn't so good is Elektra Records has told them that they were going to take, it's like Kiss Alive, they were going to take a lot of performances and splice them together. But what happened was it was Halloween weekend and they recorded just those 2 shows. So anytime you'd ask one of the members, except for John Sinclair, who loved it, thought it was a perfect representation, they kept hearing the mistakes, rather than what was good. I mean, I like it. It feels real. It feels really odd, though, if you intellectualize it. You go, oh, this is not a smart way to go. But for them, it was. I mean, I like that album the best. I like the 3rd album, High Time. The middle album, it's like most back to White Panther Party foot soldiers like me. It's like we felt a little screwed that, they went with John Lando and they made this cleaned up album that was very like Chuck Berry, like it was James Brown. It was too neat. It was too controlled. It wasn't them. But when they came to London, they played, which was kind of like their Woodstock Fun City. All these people now, like Billy Idol and Lemmy, like had seen that show, and they always say, "Oh, that I've seen the future of rock," So who knows what people like?
Yeah,
I always find it interesting with that kind of thing, though. I think when you start like with a live album, right, you usually get the essence of what a band is, and then the second album is a produced album, and people are absolutely appalled. It's like this. Yep. How could you do this to us?
But it was the way it was produced too, because it really did. I mean, that was like what, Landau's first production deal or second production deal?
His very first. What the thinking of that was, okay, backtrack, because this is a band that had a tragic series of events that derailed them. I mean, it's almost like in the book, Becky Tyner, Rob Tyner, the lead singer's wife, says it's like a Greek tragedy. They failed because they had a fatal flaw. She thought it was hubris, but I'm not sure that was a fatal flaw at all. I think it was a series of cascading events, and the first one happened was they were on the cover of Rolling Stone before they'd even released an album, and picture of Rob Tyner with extra hair, like airbrushed hair. So he's got a bigger afro than he really did, which I loved finding out. And it looked like they were a big deal. They were something. The album comes out finally in April of that year, and Lester Bangs, his first review ever. There's all these firsts. Like there's this kind of like if it's revolutionary, it's the beginning of a lot of things, and he trashes them horribly, like savagely. It was before I knew. It was before he turned up at Cream, and that just made people like not take them seriously. It was the power of rock journalism back in 1999.
But it was also so ironic. And then Bangs would go on to say that they were his favorite band ever, but it was sort of like the damage had been done years later. And I mean, Lester Bangs could be brutal, I mean, in a lot of ways, but there was an irony in the sense that the man, in many ways, who personified a Detroit rock and roll journalist ethos, would take down the band that personified a Detroit rock and roll ethos. It was, I mean, in some ways you could get really analytical, go that he was like, I'm going to get to them before they get to me type of thing.
Well, that's pretty much what happened, because he was totally converted. He was one of Rob Tyner's best friends. They had spent time together. I mean, they spent time together all the time. The Tyner's youngest daughter is named after Lester. I mean, this was a solid, like, ride or die friendship. And most of them in later years would say that they forgave him, except for John Sinclair. There's a part where he just calls him a chump, says, he did untold damage. I don't think they all really did, because that was a big blow for them. But, after that, the next cascading event is Hudson's, the big department store that sold records in Detroit, wouldn't carry the album because it had the words motherfucker in it. There wasn't the clean version, and they refused to do that. Well, that was like a slap in the face. That was our store. It's where the Santa Claus parade would go. We all went to Hudson's. they took out an ad. They created an ad and took out an ad in 2 underground newspapers, and they said "fuck Hudson." And at the end, they used Elektra's logo, conveying that Elektra had paid for it. It was part of this, and they wouldn't carry any Elektra records. This album is like rocketing up the charts. It's number 30, and Elektra drops them. You know, it's like they didn't have a lot of supporters there anyway. Part of the thing because they were open, especially John Sinclair, about smoking marijuana in their offices. They were unruly. They were hard to work with, you know, and they weren't for everybody. So I think they were relieved to have an out. So Atlantic Records scooped them up with the help of Danny Fields, who you might know because he discovered the Ramones and managed the Ramones and the Stooges, and he signed them to Elektra, and now he got them over to Atlantic Records, and Atlantic Records, Jerry Wexler signed him, and he was very close with John Landau, and used to use him as an unofficial but paid advisor on bands that they would sign, and John Landau seemed to like them enough, and Jerry gave him the project. So the thinking was, because he was associated and even a much bigger name than Lester Bangs at Rolling Stone, it would cancel out the bad review. To me, that's like such like underdeveloped thinking, but that was the thinking at the time. So that happened, and then again, Courtney, just like that, that's how it was. It's like, how dare you do this to me with this second album, you know?
It just
like
feels really wild that one bad review, really pushed the train off the tracks, which is crazy.
It started it. Yeah, because there were a lot of other little things like that. I mean, they had another thing that was similar to that where they played the Fillmore for the first time, and they were part of this political underground, and there was a band they were called Kick Out. No, they were called the Motherfuckers, but they have a preamble to that. And they attended the show, and they had a beef with Bill Graham, and they were very violent and showy and created a lot of havoc. So Bill Graham didn't want them to be there, and he canceled their 500 tickets. They came out with swinging chains, created a riot, and Bill Graham got hit in the face with a motorcycle chain and blamed the MC5 and said, "They're never playing any of my venues again."
Wow.
It's like, okay, let's throw another thing on this, you know?
And then the idea that Danny Fields booked a limo for them to go to the show. And Wayne says in the book, well, I mean, how were we supposed to get there? We have equipment. We can't take the subway. We can't take a taxi. Yeah. But it was just, the lines were so drawn at that point. I mean, I think the Landau record, the second record, had it not been the follow-up record, it would not be viewed in such a negative light. But when you're, you know, it would be almost like if Public Enemy's second record was produced by Babyface. You know, it would just be like.
But in retrospect, how is the record viewed now?
The second record?
It's the same.
No, people love it. I mean, there are a segment of people who call that their favorite record, and the English fans like that one the best. It's almost like a pop record to me, you know. It just like nothing's over 2.5 minutes. This is a band who was proud of calling themselves avant rock, and they have like a writing credit with Sun Ra. They would do long extended jams. I mean, my favorite song of theirs is like Black to Calm, which is it's actually how to connect the speakers to the outlets. The black cord goes to the common grounding. So it's like, but this is not that band on that record. It's another band. I mean, John Landau changed a lot for them. I mean, they talk about how he made them eat yogurt and lose weight and run and not do any drugs. So it's like you're looking at this dangerous biker gang kind of band who followed no rules. It's like their motto was "Make Me," and they're doing these things following John Landau, who, like, you know, at the time, again, he didn't know what he was doing. They had more studio experience than he did.
Well, here's the question: did the band like the second record?
I think they did like the second record. I think they were proud of it because it showed that they could play. And part of the Lester Bangs review, which Wayne always would quote, is that he said that we couldn't even tune our instruments. Lester didn't say that, but that's what Wayne heard. You know, like the Gnostics say, it's not what somebody says, it's what you hear. And that's what Wayne heard. So,
it's not that it is the be all and end all, because there's certainly a lot of groups. The Dolls is who I'm thinking of right off the top of my head. In just keeping in this genre, who have not made it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I just remember always seeing them on the ballot thinking, this is going to be the year, this is going to be the year. And it's almost like, it's like the Ramones, like all of them had to be dead before people got it. You know?
I know, here too. I mean, Dennis Thompson, the drummer, was hanging on by a thread, you know, in that strange moment. I don't know, it's like if destiny runs through this band for bad and for good, I mean, it was like more cascading events. It's like Wayne dies, John Sinclair, the manager, dies, Dennis Thompson dies. At least he was alive for 3 weeks, knowing that he was the last one and that they were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I just read a piece with his son that he discovered like a year before he passed away. And he was in such bad shape that every time someone would tell Dennis that they were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he'd go, yeah, it's about fucking time. But it was like the first time. So it was kind of like Groundhog Day in a good way for Dennis to find out about it.
I wish Wayne could. I mean, Wayne is the only one I ever met, and I've told you that I just knew him from New York. I mean, I think I saw Gang War. I don't remember because I was probably as high as Wayne and Johnny were. But Wayne was just like a lovely, I mean, but Wayne was just a really lovely guy. Who do you hear as their children, you know, in terms of the MC5?
Like spiritual descendants, you mean?
Yeah.
I go a lot with the people who loved them. Like I always thought Primal Scream may not have sounded exactly like them, but they had that spirit, that you can't control me spirit, that take me to a different place. Although they seem to like the psychedelia part of it, you know. And I thought, you know, you hear a little bit of elements of it in the White Stripes. I mean, Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello says every fast song they ever wrote as Rage, they would slug it as the MC5. Like that was what they were always going for. I like the Helicopters, like those little bands that never, like very few big bands sound like the MC5. Like there's a marginalized taste who likes this kind of music. It's not mainstream.
But you know what's funny? I mean, just thinking about it now, if you listen to the production of like Bomb Squad, you know, that's controlled chaos, but it is certain, like you can't help but think that people were hearing them who might not have known they, you know, like what Courtney was saying, it's like they heard them and suddenly went, and they're, you know, because Detroit was such a city influenced by Black music, you know. I can't help but think that some of the producers, mainly hip hop producers, I guess, but who are sort of chaotic in a way, but still focused, that they have that it was there in their DNA, whether they realized it or not. Because rap bands love, like, you know, some bands that I'm like, why do you like them? And it's because of the energy force, you know.
It's almost spiritual, you know. It's like it's very cosmic, and it's like that it's not controlled chaos. It's like there's one quote that I always love by Michael Davis, their beautiful bass player, and he said, you know, when all else fails, we just knock shit over, you know. And there's some kind of musicality even in that. There's this creative force. It's like really primitive, and I do think there's no way that you can grow up in Detroit, especially during that time period, and not be influenced by Motown and later by rap. It's like Black culture. It's like that's the heart of the city, and we loved Motown. Like we all loved it. That was the primary creative force there. And you know, there's no band that that could compete with like Smokey Robinson singing, like Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye. It's like everybody knew that you had to kind of create your own niche because you couldn't be that. I mean, Rare Earth tried it, and that was like a travesty. But no bands could really pull that off.
Right.
And you know what, Amy? We're going to take a break right here and be right back. And we're back.
So I want to talk to you about my origin story, which involves you. So I would sit in the library and read music magazines, and I always say, had I been reading 17 or something, or Glamour, perhaps my life would, maybe I'd know how to put on makeup and get a boy, but I didn't know how to do either one of those things. So I would read music magazines, and at the time it was Crawdaddy and Cream and Rolling Stone, and I would just go through these things, and I don't think it wasn't until I saw it's an not infamous, that's bad, famous article you did about, I dreamed I was kissing my maiden-form bra.
Oh yeah, I dreamed, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
Jim
it.
Farber and I were actually talking about that article the other day. But it wasn't until I saw a picture of you, I went, oh, she's a girl? Ooh, she's a girl. And so, I mean, it's hard enough for women in music to begin with. It's hard enough for women, though less so in music journalism. It had to be triply hard back then. And you were literally a kid. So can you just talk about, that time in terms of Cream,
Yeah, I got really lucky in terms of timing and finances. I worked, as I said, at that ballroom. So I've always loved music. My mom was a dancer with the big bands, so it was always in the house. It was always like showbiz was kind of part of it. I don't have that personality. I don't need to be the star, but it's fascinating. Like I always wanted to deconstruct who they were. So I remember like trying. It took me like 3 tries to get anything published into Cream. They used to have this little box in the front of the book that said, we ain't got nothing you ain't got, so what do you got? Send us what you got. So I would send things and I would write letters to them, and I couldn't get them to answer back. I mean, yeah, unsolicited like inquiries, nobody ever gets back to that. I went to my college newspaper and I tried to get a job reviewing. They go, well, let's see your clips. And I go, I don't have any clips. I'm in journalism school. I don't have any clips. And they said, I can't use it. But you know what? Why don't you walk down the street to Cream magazine? They don't care about things like that. So I walked down there, tried to get in, can't get in. It's like boarded up. And then just happenstance, a friend of mine was going out with the art director, and she was breaking up with him. And she said, will you come with me? I don't really want to see him alone. So I went with her. I thought, whoa, what is wrong with this woman? I did read 17 and read. I had makeup on. And I was just wowed by this guy, Charlie Oranger, and I started seeing him. And one day, it took about a month and a half, he took me to Cream. I did not go out with him because he actually worked there, but it was a real perk when he said, hey, you want to come over to the office? And I did. I walked into the office, and Barry Kramer, the publisher, said, what the F are you doing here? And I was like, oh man, this is a test. I know this is a test. And I go, well, I'm not the tooth fairy. I don't even know where that came from. It's like one of those moments you say something inappropriate and you want to take it back. And he said,
that's my career, Jan. That's my entire career.
But you have very poetic Tourette's.
Oh, I want to get a shirt that says poetic Tourette's. Thank you.
It's so you. And I just kind of blagged my way in there. How I got the job had nothing to do with my writing. I was managing like a head shop on a suburban mall, and the owner was never there. And I said, you don't have T-shirts. I have a great idea. Honestly, it was that first night I go, I could get you made some T-shirts. I wouldn't even take a cut. And I've got like a teenage sister, and I'll send my sister and her friends door to door, and they'll send T-shirts. They'll sell them door to door. And he said yes. So I went and did that because I'm always like action, action, action. And my sister sold $1,000 worth of T-shirts. I sold probably twice that, gave them the money, and I had a job as the subscription kid. No writing, just like make them other money. So I did that for about a year and started writing reviews. And I wrote my first review about Smokey Robinson retiring, and it was an open letter to Smokey Robinson, and they put it on the cover, and I was like, wow, oh man, that's like going fishing and catching a fish the first time. I, you know why I think I really had a chance was it was the happenstance of going out with the art director. It's that I was never going to give up, and I knew the only door for women was actually working in an office, because I probably kept that circulation manager job for 3 years. Like half the time I was there, I did that and I wrote at night. So it wasn't really easy, but the fact is they had very little money, and who was going to work for $25 a week? You know, someone who was really dedicated. And I just was never going to give up. Like, you know, this was going to be my life, because I ran away to New York when I was 17, and I picked up the Village Voice and the East Village Other, and I said, oh yeah, this is my job. So I just saw the future, and it looked like this.
Well, it's so funny because when people will say, you know, like, oh, how'd you get started, you know, with me, you know, and I don't do it much anymore. The first time I wrote was for a fanzine out in San Francisco, Damage. Oh, wow. And I did it. I don't even know how it happened, how we knew, but it was because you could write whatever you wanted to write. And I was like, well, this will be a good way to get into shows and get records. I want to go to, you know, this will be fun. And I wrote under my own name, and then Tequila Mockingbird. I thought that was funny.
I didn't know that was you, because I lived in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and the very first story I ever did was the Cramps. I mean, it's like, just go interview the Cramps. It's like, okay, but it was a time like that. There was nobody knew the end game then, so it would just be like. And I feel like if you have talent, if you're a writer, you know, they're going to figure it out very quickly. You know, even in a free form style, if your writing isn't good, if you're not communicating, ultimately, even the most stoned out, whatever, people want to be able to, you know, read stuff, you know.
That's so true. Walter Steiger always said that the marketplace tells people whether they're good writers or not. You just don't get hired again, you know? It's like if they keep using you, they keep using you.
And music too, because Courtney, that's your lane. I mean, ultimately, if you don't have the goods, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, there's always somebody else who wants to do it, you know?
Oh yeah, there's a line down the street, you know? Especially, that's what makes music journalism so hard, because it's got such a wow factor. Not so much now as it used to, because then you would go get free records and have all those perks and hang out and go on the road with rock bands. But, you know, if you said no, somebody else was going to be right there, you know, and then they would keep going down the line. It's a very insecure business that way, you know, fraught with anxiety.
I also think it's a story of determination, right? Because it's like me. Yeah. I said to myself, I'm going to be in the music industry. I didn't know anybody in the music industry. Yeah. I was like, but I'm going to figure this out. And what are you willing to do? Like I was an illegal intern back when you could be an illegal intern and not go through the program, and had a job outside of that and was doing that for free. I'd be in there. I remember being in the conference room at BlackRock, you know, stuffing vinyl into envelopes back when they were literally sending vinyl to the radio stations. So it's like, if you've got that thing inside of you and you've got that hunger, I do believe you can make it happen. You can't, I never compared myself to how somebody else's entry and how their career went. You just have to forge that path. You have to stay focused and single-minded and just do it.
Oh, so true. I think also I don't know if Amy, you did this, but after I had my daughter, it's like, I found out I was pregnant after I got off a Led Zeppelin tour. I have an old kid, and
I have. Wait, no, our kids are about the same age.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, I go, oh man, I can't keep going out on the road with bands because that's was my life. And I think the hardest thing was coming back, the re-entry of trying to prove that, like, I was in my late 30s when I came back, and it was like, okay, why should some mom be writing rock? Like the same thing. But it really is that, Courtney. It's like, I did the story on psychics for the San Francisco Chronicle, and I went and had psychic readings with 7 of them, and then assessed them. And one woman said to me, okay, your motto is never take no for a living. And that's what got me back. Like, I would never take no. Like, I'll keep doing it. Like, I'll be that person that just keeps batting my head against the wall until I figure out the way in. So, I mean,
I was so naive. I mean, because I had no job skills, to be really honest with you. I mean, I was a bartender in an after hours punk club. I was a bartender at a strip bar. I was a waitress. It wasn't anything you could put on a resume. I worked for a little bit here and there places. And then when I had my kid, I was sort of like, I know I can write music reviews. That's a sure ticket to making sure he can have braces when he gets home. But somehow, I mean, I never became rich, obviously, but somehow it was perfect because I could be at home with him.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, it was sort of my career in a lot of ways started because I suddenly was like, okay, I'm a single mom. I need to figure out a way of making a living. I have no job skills. And it was a very different time, obviously. I was able to, I can't imagine starting out now. I can't imagine what it'd be like.
It's like we got paid better then, too,
We did. That's so crazy.
I know. You know what I always remember about you is that you always had that it factor, and you always feel so comfortable in your body. And you've got like this kind of star power like the stars. You are like them. And you really write in your own voice. So, there was no way you were not going to be like rise up the ranks. That's what I noticed about your writing early on. And then when we both worked at Microsoft Music Central.
Right, at Microsoft. We both worked. Remember when all the online companies, remember MSN.com? Remember that, Courtney?
Yeah.
All the online, all the online, but you had so much freedom back then.
Let me just say this. You both come from a time where I think you're really lucky because I look at music journalism now, right? And it's even like when they do interviews with artists now, maybe it's over Zoom, maybe it's at a restaurant, maybe it's in their publicist's office or the management office. But you were in a time where you got to go on the road with artists. That doesn't happen anymore. Well, there's no journalist embedded with bands.
She's way cool. She's way cooler.
But you got to do a lot of interesting, cool things with artists when we used to set things up and you would go out and do the shows. Now it just feels different. Yeah.
I know, it's really hard. I mean, my thing is that I learned the older I got that I can break the fourth wall, and not put up with that and treat. It's like, can I treat them like a hostile witness kind of thing, and I'll go, wait, do girlfriends call you a withholder? Like, why aren't you answering my questions? But going to places, I have the fortunate ability to, like, I write for this magazine called Uncut in the UK, and they insist, like, they and Mojo are the big 2 magazines over there, and they insist you go to the artist. So, like, you do Rod Stewart, you go to Rod Stewart's house, you go to Bill Callahan's house. It's like you feel like you're an invader, but you go like that. That's part of it. So I feel really lucky when I get to do that. You get so much better stories because you get people in the act of being themselves.
Absolutely, yep.
Oh, it's it's not a service to an artist to control everything. Because then there's no reason you attach to them. I mean, there's these figures, they call it the Terry Gross effect, and you go on Fresh Air as an artist and they don't even play your music. But if your stories are good and you're likable, that your sales shoot up for the next 10 days 400%. So it's the likability factor. But if you're not seeing them out of captivity, then you don't get that. I think that I don't think they'll ever reverse that, but I'm going to say that is probably the best thing. See people out of the little offices or like restaurants. It's like, seriously, what are we going to write about how you treat the waitress? What a good tipper you are.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, the best thing I would ever get from artists was they would say, wow, this didn't even feel like an interview.
Yeah, right.
Which was nice. Or also in restaurants. I mean, I'm sorry, we're like tradesmen, but you're interviewing an artist in a bar, and then you get home and you're like, what? I can't hear anything you said, and I'm just now going to make the whole thing up.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because you are.
Because you are. I mean, it's like Marquis Smith in a bar. So between the accent and the bar, I got home and I was like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of ellipsis in this because there was like a lot of who do you listen? I know you still are in the game, but who do you like these days musically? Who are you listening to?
This is kind of crazy. I really love that new artist MJ Lenderman. I kind of fell in love with him
because everybody likes him.
Yeah, I didn't want to like him on paper, and he's one of those withholders. He was a hard interview.
That's the way I felt about him. Like, too many people. Jim Farber and I always have bonded over the fact that we both don't like the same people.
Oh yeah, that's
not
big.
Artists, but we don't like the same people that you're supposed to pretend you like.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask him about him, but if he were to say, so now that you said him, and he said him, all right, I have to listen to him.
Oh yeah, he's really, really, really good. I love Back to Bill Callahan. I love his new record. I love Bill Callahan. It's like he's a grouchy, like, poetic, terrible interview, but absolutely one of my favorite artists, and I always will listen to him. I don't know. I haven't been listening to. I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff, but I don't attach to it. It's got
nothing sticks.
Yeah, nothing sticks.
Really. Amy and I talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
People think streaming is great. I get it. Now you get a bunch of stuff thrown at you, but I miss when you had a record. And it was really great marketing plan around it. And you could feel it. You could live with it. Universally, there was a bunch of us. We were all kind of in that vibe. Now I feel like I get a lot of things thrown. And there's some things that are interesting, but nothing really sticks.
I know. It's
a buffet. There's a lot of food. And you're picking all this food. And then you're like, what did you just eat? And I'm like, I don't remember.
I know.
Right.
Well, you know what she thinks? Oh, I love the new King Princess album. I love her. Like, she's She's a mean girl who's secretly nice, but I love her stuff. But you know what I was doing for a while, and it just got tedious, is on Fridays I do Spotify New Music Friday, and I wouldn't look at who was the next cut up. And when I liked something, I'd write it down. That was it. It was like market research almost, and I would spend a couple hours every Friday doing that. But I found not much that I like there either. I'm not excited about things unless they show up or somebody says to me, oh, you got to hear this. Like somebody said that about MJ Lenderman. I go, I don't know. He looks real normal. He just looks like an emo guy, like a Dave Matthews Band member.
Oh my God, he looks so normal. I kept looking at him. I kept hoping with a name like that he'd be like some gender fluid, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, he's like a guy named MJ Letterman.
Yeah,
or, it's like.
That's like me right now with FKA Twigs. I can't tell if I'm enjoying the new music because I'm enjoying it, or because she's giving me so like arty weird girl that I'm like, okay, finally somebody's doing something.
Yeah, right. Well, MJ is a little weird guy. Like there's a real sick, dark mind there, and you go, but you look so normal.
I like sick, dark mind.
So that's enough.
But I tend to keep going back. I mean, Courtney, what are you listening to right now? What kind of stuff?
Well, for some reason.
Okay, that's his catchphrase, by the way. He's gonna have a T-shirt that says "For some reason."
For some reason, okay. You know me and my pop girlies. So Jade from Little Mix has been making she's had a couple of solo records. But what I like is she's actually making interesting pop. The 3 songs she's put out have not been like the typical pop girl singles. And I think the visuals she's been giving, like for this last one that just came out, Fantasy, which is kind of Soul Train meets Carrie. And the song is really good. Wait a minute.
I'm so glad I didn't have the lozenge in my mouth when you said it.
It is
because I literally would have died. I would have been dead. Like literally dead.
And FKA Twigs' latest single, Perfect Stranger, is really interesting. And I like the visual that she's giving. And I don't always love her all the time. My sister loves her. But it's interesting. And those 2 things I keep going back to. And I've been listening to a lot of Stevie Wonder. He's been back in my.
How can you not?
Yeah.
How can you not? Well, I mean, in honor of you coming, because I have to say, I am a creature of habit.
MC5. I've been listening to MC5 on
I know.
weekend.
No, he called me up and I was like, I'm sorry, someone has replaced Courtney with somebody else. It's
Just
great.
randomly, I'm like, I don't know why I like this, but I do.
I know.
Because it's good, But it's so funny because I'm sorry, go Jen.
No. I the same thing. Like, I've had to think about this a lot because of the book and the book tour of like why people should like MC5 or why they like it or why they didn't make it. But it gets, what I said before, it gets inside of you, It's not normal, but it's almost like it encodes something in you. And like I said, your heart beats along with the bass.
There's a musicality there. There's an absolute, even in the chaos. There's a musicality there. And I appreciate that,
I mean, I feel like that about the dolls. I'm like, not to be cruel, but I'm like, so clearly David has to die before they will get, and I don't want him to die.
I know.
I don't, because he's adorable,
Well, you still vote on the rock hole, so I'm not.
I do
just
too.
going to say the thing that I always say.
You vote too.
I've always said, if Whitney Houston was alive, she would not be in there. If Donna Summer was alive, she would not be in there.
Donna Summer definitely wouldn't have been in there.
For certain people, I was surprised that Mary J. Blige got in there. I told you, I was really surprised. And I feel like sometimes the people have to die. Then all of a sudden, there's this appreciation for, you know what, they were more than just this. And then they had it.
So
look at Cher, 30 years, she's been eligible for 30 years.
I know.
Right. And people think about Cher and they talk about the later records. Cher had a string of rock records. They weren't as successful as when she came back in the 80s with, I Found Someone in the Geffen years. But all of those Warner Brothers records, the first time, they were all rock records. She was a
Phil Spector session singer. She gets in just on that. She gets in just on that. There are certain people, it's like, I don't care if you've never done anything else in your life. You were on that record, you get on that. But it's so funny because I tend to listen to the same thing over and over and over again. So, I listen, but for some reason, I guess because you were coming on, I started, I love Iggy obviously, but I started listening to Zombie Birdhouse, which I haven't listened to in years.
No, me neither.
It's so good because, I mean, obviously you go to the early stuff and then you do the Berlin trilogy, which is like, and then, New Values, which I love.
Yeah.
But I was like, Zombie Birdhouse is the one that kind of came and went. I think Chris Stein produced it, or there's some weird connection. But I was listening to that and I was like, oh my God, this is because the Stooges were their baby band, right? Were the MC5's little baby band. And
they used to call them their brother band. And, it's a whole source of like rancor that they got bigger than the MC5. But,
well, I mean,
Iggy's
Iggy's a class unto himself in terms of frontman. I mean, he really is. I mean, he was not that they were better musically, but I mean, he's just like, there's like a template. There's like 5 people you can do being a rock singer, and he's like number 1 and 2, basically.
I know. And it's like, he's like the kind of guy you wake him up in the middle of the not that I'm waking him up in the middle of the night, but waking him up in the middle of the night and he's that guy still, he's like Iggy all the time.
I've met him. He's the nicest guy.
The nicest guy.
The nicest guy.
I grew up with him. I'm not going to say.
I interviewed him once, but my only encounter with him in terms of one-on-one, and I'm not saying anything. When I worked at A7, which was an after-hours club, which was on 7th, where I met Wayne Kramer. He used to hang out there. He asked me out for breakfast, and he told me I could get the $1.29 breakfast, not the 99 cent breakfast.
Oh, I love that. I hope that's in your book.
I think he was a little sweet on me. I was like, wow, I can get 2 sides of grits. This is amazing. Iggy came in with this very notorious Lower East Side. He's dead now, so I don't care. He was a scumbag, this guy. But he was a drug addict and just super notorious guy. And Iggy came in with him because we were right near all the drug spots. Yeah. And Spacely was literally going through my garbage. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm trying to find a bottle cap. I went, I'll give you a goddamn bottle cap. Stop going through my garbage. And Iggy was standing there and I'm looking right at him and he goes, hi, I'm Jimmy. Nice to meet you. I'm like, you're going through my garbage. Like, you're going to shoot up in my bathroom and you're going through my garbage.
And I think that's where we should end it. Amy, tell us about the book.
Oh, okay. One more time. I'm going to hold it up. Oral biography of rock's most revolutionary band, the MC5. Brad Tolinsky, the late Ben Emmons, but for my purposes, our purposes, Jaan Uhelski. It's just a great book. If you know something about them, it's illuminating. If you don't know anything about them, it's illuminating. It's a great look at a band. It's a great look at the times, that time, which is a never to be replicated time in American history.
And guess what? If you're like me and you don't know anything about them, start with the music. Because I did. For sure. And the music will make you want to read the book because the music is absolutely, I mean, listen, I'm a new fan. So now when I go through those periods, I'm one of those people that gets obsessed and I'm like, well, I guess let me put on the MC5. You know what I mean? while I'm cleaning the house.
We're so happy. It's good house cleaning music.
It is. It makes you want to do it faster. So
faster, more vacuuming. Anyway, the book is out now. Jaan, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for having me. This is my spiritual descendant. I always think Amy Linden is like the best of the bunch, always.
I always try to tell her we need to do a show on all of the things you've done. And she's so like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, you've done a lot of shit. It would be really interesting.
I have really low self-esteem. Okay, I have very low self-esteem.
Okay, Courtney, let me come on an interview.
If I didn't have low self-esteem, I wouldn't have slept with half the people I slept with. And on that note, I just want. Let me just tell you something.
I second that emotion.
Okay? But I am definitely in my No More Mercy fuck season. So those are long been gone. We do want to say congratulations to our New York Liberty for bringing a basketball championship to New York.
Yeah.
Congratulations to our Yankees who are in the World Series that starts Friday. Good luck to our Knicks that open the season tonight playing against the Celtics.
And
better luck next year
for the Mets. Better
luck next year, Mets. Nobody even thought you would get this far. So to see that, you know what? I'm going to applaud you. And the Giants and the Jets, you suck.
No, they suck. Again, guys, early voting starts this week, and if you're in New York, vote.
Yes
vote
on Prop 1 and no on 2 through 6.
Yes on Prop 1, no on everything that Eric Adams has stuck his villainous little hands on.
Because trust me, his villainous little hands will be stealing something else. And next week, we'll see who else gets kicked out of the administration. But it won't be us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.